With week 11 of the National Football season all wrapped up and week 12 on deck, there are a handful of teams that are continuing to separate themselves from the pack of the NFL, while there's several teams that are still slumping and find themselves at the bottom of the barrel of the NFL's sea of futility, and now are vying for the first overall pick. Find out who these teams are and how they fared on this edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little bit on Gridiron Gab Pro Style. I am your host, the one and only Mr. CeeLo. Hope you guys are doing great out there. I just want to give a big time gab out to my daughter. Her birthday was last week, and I'm doing this for a whole week. Let everybody know that it's my little Bookie Boots birthday. Daddy loves you, baby. And so many of you guys have been commenting and basically doing what I asked you guys to do, as far as going through and commenting in the comments who you are and that you've joined the Gridiron Gab family. Thank you so much. But then there's several of you whom have joined, and there's been 3 more additions that we have nothing to vouch for, as we are once again stuck in a rut. Once again, thanks, Howard, for the ad. You will be, because I owed you that from the last show. Thank you so much, Howard. But so many of you are added here. And, please make sure you guys sign in. There are so many of you that are here, and we need you to be a part of the conversation. As for many of you that are watching the content but you're not commenting, hey, listen, that's cool. But at the same time, I am doing this because I wanted to get involved in a conversation or start a conversation that too many analysts try to avoid. But anyway, let's get into the final scores of week 11. I know a lot of you are like, why are we doing this? We're about to start week 12. Well, I'm one of those guys. I like to wait until everybody else has said what they got to say, and then I have to throw in my slice of cake. As we know, a week ago, the Eagles handled the Commanders, or took command of the Commanders. Well, looking at this realistically, and the reason why I say realistically, there are a lot of people who look at this score and they say the Eagles dominated this game. No. They dominated one quarter. I want you to pay attention to this one quarter, because for the first 3 quarters it was 10-6. And all of a sudden the floodgates rolled over, and it was almost like the Commanders were holding up they were like pushing up against a wall that had 1,000 zombies from The Walking Dead. You know what that means. But basically, in a nutshell, this was a game that it looked like it was in doubt majority of this game. I don't care what anybody says. You can have anybody watch this game over, and it seemed like that the Eagles were going to begin the start of its downward spiral. And, the downward spiral I'm referring to last year, when this team had its 6-game fold, and they went from being arguably the top team in the NFC to It's a team that's totally looking for a possibly decent pick in the draft. But let's look here as Jalen Hurts was 18 of 28, 221. Not overwhelming, impressive in this game. Sacked twice. Saquon Barkley, though, however, 26 for 146, 2 scores, and had an impressive run in the fourth quarter. A couple of impressive good runs. And then Jaden Daniels, 22 of 32, 191, 1 touchdown, and an interception. But he was sacked 3 times, which was something that was very concerning. But then Brian Robinson had 16 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Don't understand why Austin Ekeler is not featured as much running the football. Still not understanding why that's not a big push for the Commanders. Ekeler had 8 grabs for 89 yards. That's impressive. But the truth of the matter is this has got to be a guy that is featured wholeheartedly if this offense is going to go anywhere. In the running game, I might add. Because Ekeler has a nose for the end zone. He is a guy that has still got a lot left in the tank. I don't care what any analyst has to say about this whole, oh, well, he's this and he's that. He'll be 30 next year. He's still 29. He ain't hit 30 yet. What are you talking about? Then we look at a guy, in my opinion, like, don't get me wrong, Brian Robinson's a good guy. But I think another guy that needs to be featured in this running game is Mr. Boise State himself, Jeremy McNichols. Still a great running back. He's 28 years old. Been in the league almost 7 years. Been bouncing around. Then you've got a guy by the name of Terry McLaurin who only caught 1 pass. So you already knew what they were trying to accomplish, they being the Eagles. And then you look at how the Commanders did such a phenomenal job stopping the passing attack. This is a team that does not have a great pass rush, but they make up for it with blitz packages. A.J. Brown, 5 for 65. Goddard, 5 for 61. And Saquon had 2 out of the backfield for 52. That was really the big deal. Was Saquon Barkley was the big guy in this game, in my opinion. But let's look at the defense as Jeremy Chinn cracked 13 tackles. Frankie Louvu had 10 and 2 sacks. You guys know I'm a Carolina Panther boy, so I'm going to always bring this to the party when it happens. Yeah, Morgan. Good. Meanwhile, on the flip side, you had the Philadelphia defense see Zach Bond collect 15 tackles, Nakobe Dean 10 tackles, and Reed Blankenship get 10. And then you saw Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith also collect sacks in this game for a total of 3. And finally, it just seemed like the 2 turnovers that they had in this game were the difference in the football game ultimately. And it ultimately was. The 1 turnover that was had in this game was ultimately the game changer because ultimately when the Eagles got it going, there was a turnover. And after that, it was all downhill for the Washington Commanders, who dropped to 7-4 as the Eagles go to 8-2 and take over a commanding sole possession in the NFC East with this weekend coming up. Then we have the Packers escape Chicago with a last-second field goal blocked by Carl Brooks to seal the Packers win and go to 7-3. Now, there's a lot of people that we also saw the dismissal of the Bears offensive coordinator. Now, in all fairness, let's just get this out of the way real quick. Some of this is on the offense, but the Bears could easily be 6-4 or 7-3. Let's not forget that, But do I think the NFL is a league of close wins and close losses? Of course. But do I think this is a situation where it should have happened? Yeah. The Bears offense is not very good. They're not. They're surviving by the skin of their teeth with this defense. And they look about as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. What the I know. But looking at the complete presence of this game, what really sticks out to me is how the Packers seemingly, I don't want to say struggled, but it looked more like the Packers were more content with running the football, which is not a bad thing. Because if the Packers get to a point where they're just running the football like they did this week, 18 carries for Jacobs, 76 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Love, 4 carries, 18 and a score. Manuel Wilson, 2 for 17. And even Jaden Reed lost 5 on a carry. But if the Packers were to do it this way, and then look at the efficiency of the throws, you guys. Look at this. Christian Watson in his return, 4 grabs, 150 yards. He had over half of Jordan Love's completion yards on 4 plays. That's what you want. And then you had Josh Jacobs with 4 more for 58, and everybody else was pretty quiet. But then you look at the entire placement of how they're running their offense. They're running their offense and they're saying, hey, look, let's run the football. The only thing I look at with the Green Bay Packers is do they have enough at the running back position? That is my only concern when I look at the Green Bay Packers. Because if they go like this and they run it like this is going to be a very dangerous team to beat if they're able to run the football and then use Jordan Love like this on play action. This is going to be dangerous. As far as the Bears go, I'm looking here and I see Caleb Williams nearly threw the ball twice as many times as his counterpart. And here's the reality when it comes to this. You're only up 10-7 at the half, them being the Bears. And it's almost like the Packers were just kind of like, let's see if this works. Let's see if it works. That was kind of the view. That was kind of the initial impression that I got from it. I mean, you look at the entire setup. Bears 23 first downs to 19. Total plays 68 plays for the Bears. And they only outgained the Packers by 30 yards. Enough said. And the Packers had the lone turnover. Look at this. How do you get out? How do you hold the football 13 minutes longer than the opposing team and you lose by a point in your building? Still issues with the Chicago Bears and their offense. Didn't know much about DJ Moore at the end of this game. He did have 7 catches for 62 yards. Rome Odunze, 665. Cole Kmet got a little more involved this week, which I've been saying, Chicago, why is Cole Kmet not getting more balls? Because if he gets more balls, you're going to open up more opportunities for guys like Keenan Allen, who only had 4 grabs, but he had 8 targets. Odunze had 10 targets. DJ Moore caught all 7 of his targets. But you're still coming up short. Kevin Byard had 9 tackles. And DeMarcus Walker had the lone sack for the Bears. The Green Bay Packers, led by Rashawn Gary, had a sack. Brenton Cox had a sack. TJ Slayton had a sack. And Xavier McKinney and Carrington Valentine both were tied for the team lead with 9 tackles. As the Packers go to 7-3 and the Bears fall to 4-6. Next, we've got just the absolute mauling. Lions 52, Jaguars 6, as this was just an execution clinic. I'll just go through the statistics as the Jacksonville Jaguars just haven't shown any signs of life since Trevor Lawrence hit the bench. Mac Jones was 17 of 29, 138. He had an interception. They've got injuries riddled. Travis Etienne only had 27 yards on the ground. And Brian Thomas had 5 grabs for 82 yards. Evan Ingram, 5 for 28. Parker Washington, 1 for 10. Then you look over on the other side. Ooh, buddy. Jared Goff, 24 of 29, 412 yards, 4 touchdowns. Hendon Hooker came in relief and was 3 of 4 for 37 yards. I'm sure Detroit Lions fans are happy to see that. David Montgomery, 15 carries, 75 yards. 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 69 yards, and a score. So Sonic and Knuckles, the Sonic and Knuckles tandem did what they did. The Lions ran for a total of 196 yards on 43 carries. Yeah. Detroit receiving, what can I say? Amon-Ra St. Brown, 11 grabs, 161, 2 scores. Jameson Williams, this is a very happy sign for the Lions fans. This is what they were expecting when he came out of Bama. 4 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. He had 6 targets. Jahmyr Gibbs had a grab for 54 yards. But the one thing that I would say that the Lions more than likely took away from this game is that Jameson Williams, if he can get going and that tandem can go with Amon-Ra St. Brown, this is not going to be fun to try to defend in the playoffs. And see, Sam Laporta didn't do anything in this game. I don't even think he played in this game. So can you imagine when they get this guy back, what this team's going to look like? Favorites in the NFC, I might add, ladies and gentlemen. Favorites in the NFC. Looking back at this game, there's not much really to look at for the Lions, except they just out-executed on all areas. And this was just a game that really they were able to pad their stacks. Jack Campbell had 9 total tackles and a half sack. Zadarius Smith had the other sack, considering that's really crazy that the Lions were only able to get 1 sack, considering how poorly they played. And the Jaguars, of course, were unable to get to Jared Goff. And this is where we look back at this and we say, Lions go to 9-1, Jaguars fall into purgatory, football purgatory, and go to 2-9. Vikings 23, Titans 13. As this is a game that we once again this is a game where you got one team that's got a quarterback answer and the other one does not. And this, I don't even put this as much on Will Levis as I do. This is a first-year head coach. Levis was 17 of 31, 295, and a touchdown and an interception. But the running game is non-existent. And I don't understand why Callahan would think, okay, this would be the guy for your running game. Tony Pollard is a change-up kind of guy. He's not your guy that you need to have as a starter. That's number one. Number two, Westbrook Ikhine had 2 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. That's a plus, even though the one he had was a 98-yarder, which was the longest in, I think, Titans history. But then you're unable to get Calvin Ridley going, Tyler Boyd going, and it's looking a lot like the Cincinnati Bengals offense in a lot of ways when it's not working. And honestly, you've got to get yourself a running game. This is honestly, like I said, I love Chase Brown in Cincinnati, but unfortunately, he's not the running back for that system. He does create a lot of different things, but he's got to put some weight on. Kind of reminds me of Chuba at this moment, but unfortunately, right now, he is not the answer. And I will say that I am seeing some things out of Will Levis that I like, despite the fact he was sacked 5 times. They're going to start running the football more. Sam Darnold was 20 of 32, 246, and 2 touches. Then you look at the running game, which they still have not been able to establish properly. And ultimately, this is going to be, I think, Minnesota's Achilles heel once they get into the playoffs. Justin Jefferson, 6 grabs, 81 yards. And the turnover battle was not necessarily a huge key in this one, but it was huge for a team that cannot afford to have those turnovers. It was 1 turnover, which was the interception thrown by Levis, and the Vikings had a fumble, but the Vikings can afford that. Vikings managed to win the time of possession, which is something the Titans have not been able to accomplish. 24 first downs to 11 in favor of the Vikings. And there's just a lot of things that I'm seeing from the Tennessee Titans that are not good habits to have on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they don't play that bad, when you got a team like Minnesota who has Andrew Van Ginkel, who is just playing out of his mind this year with 2 sacks, and then Pat Jones also added 2 sacks, and then Blake Cashman, not surprised, he added another sack, one of the 5 sacks in this game, and then you have Kenneth Murray and Arden Key, who added sacks for the Tennessee Titans, but they're just going to have to get the right pieces together for this Tennessee Titan team to get it together. But the Titans fall to 2-8 as the Vikings move to under the radar 8-2. Now we've got the Dolphins 34, Raiders 19. This was a game that kind of, you looked at it and it was like, okay, what's going on here? This was a game that did not look like this. It was going this way until about the 4th quarter. This was a relatively close football game, and then the Dolphins kind of just exploded there. And you kind of wonder, okay, where did that come from? And honestly, it throws you in a weird space because you come into the 4th quarter and you see, okay, the Raiders got a shot at this. And then all of a sudden, you see the Dolphins drive down and they get They get 17 points in the fourth quarter, coupled with an interception thrown by Gardner Minshew, and that pretty much put the Raiders. That's pretty much sealed the Raiders' fate, because it seemed like the Raiders were about to get back in this thing, and then the Dolphins proceeded to have a 10-play, nearly 6-minute drive that bled into the fourth quarter, and that just sealed it right there. And for the most part, you would think the Raiders were going to continuously milk away, but the game's in Miami. What does Miami do when they play at home and they got Tua? They're going to put you away. Tua finished 28 of 36, 288, 3 touches, and was sacked twice. Devon Achane had 17 carries for 73 yards and a touch. And the all-important receiving corps, Jonnu Smith was the guy. And I had been saying that if Mike McDaniel started utilizing the tight end more, you'll be able to start getting Tyreek Hill and Waddle some opportunities. Now, that didn't materialize as much in this game. But I'll tell you this. I will gladly tell you this. It's going to open up some stuff in the future. Mark my words. It's going to open up some stuff in the future, because you want to know why? Because you can't just keep letting Jonnu Smith eat people up in the middle. And see, Tua's got to be willing to accept that. They have to have a play at all times where this dude is just straight breaking it, where he's just straight busting heads. But his counterpart was just as good, and that counterpart was Brock Bowers. 13 grabs, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Now, here's the issue with the Raiders. You want to know who needs to be getting the ball too? Michael Mayer, your second-round pick, bro. You got 2 tight ends. How many times have you heard me say, if the Raiders would utilize 2 tight ends, they could beat anybody in the league? Because not everybody can match up with 2 tight ends. And then what starts to happen is you start emphasizing a certain one, the other one's going to hurt you. Just saying. But the story is the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill had 7 grabs for 61 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, 2 for 37. This is the case where the Dolphins are starting to figure out they need to creep back in this. Like I said, this is a league right now that is a lot of futility going on in the league. A lot of bad teams this year. And a lot of teams are right down there, and there's very few good teams. We're this late in the season, we're still waiting for teams not only to find their identities, but to separate themselves from the pack. We've got a few that have, but there are still teams that have the opportunity to seize the moment and seize a place. Zach Ziegler had a sack. Calais Campbell and Emmanuel Ogbah each had sacks. Had one of the 3 sacks that the Dolphins had. Then, of course, Adam Butler, as well as Tyree Wilson, picked up a sack in this game. That's definitely a pleasant display for the Las Vegas Raiders to see this finally happen, to see this guy possibly come into the party so that they don't have to worry themselves with another pass rusher to go with the wonderful and awesome Max Crosby. They also saw Robert Spillane pick up 11 tackles in this game. Jordan Brooks had 13 tackles for the Dolphins. Anthony Walker Jr. also added 10. Then we have the Rams 28 and the Patriots 22. Now, the Patriots looked like they were going to just hang around in this game and possibly pull the upset in Foxborough. I thought for sure that was what's about to happen. But then Stafford fooled me yet again with a 28-point second and a third quarter. And really, in a nutshell, just kind of told the Patriots, this is my game. Yeah, this was a really boring game until Matt Stafford decided he was going to make his best impersonation of Paul Crewe. Good Paul Crewe. 18 of 27, 295, 4 touchdowns. Drake May was not bad at all as well. He was 28, 9 of 39 for 282, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Adding Ramondre Stevenson with 20 carries, 73 yards. I say this about Drake May because Drake May does not have much. He does have Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. But Kendrick Bourne and Kayshon Boutte, they're going to have to get him some help. I mean, just reality. They're going to have to get him some help. And needless to say, once they do that, this is going to be I think Drake May is going to be a good quarterback. I think so. I must go ahead and admit that this was a guy that I was not sold on, but I think ultimately he is going to become a pretty good NFL quarterback. Kyren Williams added 86 yards, no touchdowns this day. Puka Nacua had 7 grabs for 123 and a touch. Cooper Kupp had 6 grabs for 106 and 2 touches. And ultimately, this turns into a game where it looked like the Rams were just kind of piddling around and trying to feel themselves out. It's amazing that just about a month ago, this was a team, 3 weeks ago, this was a team 3 weeks ago that was saying, if we lose this game, we're going to probably get rid of Cooper Kupp and a couple of other guys. But here they are, 5-5. Still not out of it. Quentin Lake had 11 tackles, as well as Christian Rozboom. And Braden Fisk, a guy whom this team has really been waiting to come out, he had 2 sacks in this game. Byron Young, had 2 sacks, 2 of the 3 sacks. And the Patriots did not get any sacks of Matt Stafford. So the Patriots fall to 3-8 in purgatory as well as NFL futility. Then we got the Saints 35 and the Browns 14 as Taysom Hill runs for 3 touchdowns, and thank goodness I didn't have to play him in fantasy. But you know what's funny? When he was announced that he was playing this week, one of the guys in my fantasy league just jumped on him. I was right there, y'all, because I knew that there was no way, as badly as the Saints needed a win, that they were going to let this opportunity go by. They were going to feed this guy the ball, and boy, did they ever. They made this the Taysom Hill game. Taysom Hill's only blemish on this day was the interception he threw. But other than that, 7 carries, $138, 3 touches. Oh, wait. It don't stop there. He also had 8 catches for 50 yards. All he needed to do was throw for a touchdown and catch a touchdown. This day would have been perfect. But I'm glad I didn't have to face him. Woo! But I do know somebody who did. Ooh, goodness.
God damn.
But let's look at the remainder of it as Jameis Winston was 30 of 46, 395, 2 touchdowns. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, and Derek Carr was not bad either, 21 of 27, 248, 2 touchdowns. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 2 grabs for 87 yards and 1 touchdown. Not bad for a newcomer. Well, you know what I mean. You know, he's a newcomer considering this is his first year, of course. Foster Moreau, 3 for 50. But I got to look at this and I got to say, how in the world did the Saints blow them up like that with Jameis Winston just going nuts? Well, I don't know. I mean, I just kept watching this game and I kept thinking, they got to do what they do. And the Saints had 2 turnovers. And when you look at this game and you think to yourself, turnovers, you got missed field goals, you got a ton of missed field goals by the Browns. So, and I mean, you just got mistakes on top of mistakes. This is not just the play of the team. This has got a lot to do with coaching. Because you're talking about anywhere from 13 points that could have changed the complexity of this game. You got missed field goals and you got just bad decision making by the coaching staff. And ultimately, I will say this. The Cleveland Browns have got to get Nick Chubb going. There's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Nick Chubb, I get it. He's coming back. And, the only thing I can say is I don't think this offensive line is the line that we've seen in the past. It's just not looking like the offensive line that I've seen in the past. Now, granted, Chubb averaged almost 5 yards a carry on Sunday. And that may be something else the Browns have to look at. They need to run the ball more. I think that's the same problem with a lot of teams. They need to run the football and run it with purpose. Stick with it. Listen, yes, Jameis Winston's a good quarterback. I get that. A lot of people are figuring that out now. 395, 2 touchdowns. People have never questioned Jameis Winston's ability to throw that thing down the field. They've always questioned his decision making in times when that he needs to kind of just He has that kind of a Brett Favre mentality. But the Browns fall to 2-8 in NFL purgatory or futility. The Saints trying to climb out of a losing streak that they started way back in September, and they seem to be doing a good job. Saints 35, Browns 17. Probably, I didn't see this coming. I did not see this coming. Colts 28, Jets 27. I thought for sure the Jets were going to get off the schneid with this one. But unfortunately, the Colts go to 5-6, keep their playoff hopes alive, and the Jets are all but dead. And Aaron Rodgers' future is in question. He could be joining Daniel Jones. And you guys already know about that story, right? Richardson scores late on a touchdown run that leads the Colts to a 28-27 victory over the Jets. But to me, that was, the problem you're looking at is Aaron Rodgers is 22 of 29, 184. Breece Hall, 16 carries, 78 yards, 1 touchdown. You're not getting it done where you need it. Anybody that wants to sit here and watch this game and say, "Oh, it's all about the defense giving up 28 points." Well, hold on. Let's back and pump our brakes up a little bit. Let's pump the brakes a little bit here. The Colts got 18 first downs. Jets only 10. Jets went 4-13 on third down. The Colts went 6 of 15. The Colts had 332 yards of offense. The Jets had 80 yards less. And the Colts had the only turnover of the game, which was a fumble lost. And the Colts dominated time of possession by almost 10 minutes. Now, this ain't all about getting off the field. Some of this is the offense ain't staying on the field. I mean, we can sit here and we can discuss it, because here's the truth of the matter. You get field goal, and this we'll talk about the Jets' possessions. Punt, turnover on downs, punt. Then they finally get a 7-play, 76-yard drive in a $137, and that was in a 2-minute offense. Then to open the second half, you get a turnover, and that's your other that's one of your touchdowns. Then you go punt, field goal, touchdown, and it just so turned out that once you scored that touchdown, you went back and got a field goal. But here's the thing: the Indianapolis Colts put up 14 points on you.
Bruh.
14. 12. Which that almost cost them in itself. All I can say is that the Jets are a dumpster fire, and I never would have anticipated this. They have really made this easy for all the naysayers and the doubters, because really and truly, I don't feel bad for them. I look at it as a situation where, well, you got all the talent, and then the first move that you made, which was dumb, and I mean, it's funny because they're saying the owner did it, but I think Aaron Rodgers, as far as, with Joe Douglas, of course, removing Robert Saleh, and then of course him being put out the door as well. So this is a dumpster fire in all essence. Do I think Woody Johnson is the worst owner in sports? And that's kind of harsh. I think Chris Canty is a guy that I don't have a lot of respect for, because he thinks too much with his heart and in the moment. To me, he's a guy, he's always looking for the headline, and I'm not for guys like that. I don't like guys that are just so bent on trying to get the headlines. Just say what's real. I respect guys that speak from the heart. They're not going to sit here and speak on every singular moment that comes to pass. We know the Jets. I mean, look, you can't blame Johnson for trying to win. If this thing goes correctly, guess what? Everybody's in love with the New York Jets again. So just stop it, Canty. And some guys don't need to be in front of a mic.
What?
Not me. Anthony Richardson's touchdown run was impressive, but not big. He ended up with only 32 yards on the ground, but he did have a second touchdown rushing. He was 20 of 30, 272, as well as throwing a touchdown here. Now, do I think he's there? I don't think so. We've seen this from Richardson, and now everybody's going to go snatch him up off of fantasy, and they're going to be disappointed next week. You'll find out later. Josh Downs, 5 grabs, 84 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Adams, 6 for 72. Breece Hall, 7 for 43. Garrett Wilson, 4 for 18. As we look at the 2 sacks that the Jets had on defense, Javon Kinlaw and Keenan Williams were responsible for those. Kewede Payne had 2 sacks of Aaron Rodgers. Laiatu Latu had a sack of his own, had a sack of the 3 that they had on Aaron Rodgers. As the Jets fall to 3-8, the Colts move up to 5-6. The Steelers 18, Ravens 16, and I got to talk to them Ravens fans a little bit. I got to spend some time with y'all because how many times, and I know y'all saw this all over ESPN, so you know I had to get some love from y'all.
Stop the cap.
Where's Deontay Johnson at? Where's he at? I'm trying to figure out where he is. Y'all said he the best thing you got on your roster since popcorn. I want to know where he at. Where at, y'all? I mean, do I have to start calling names? And y'all the ones that said when this trade went down, he was the best thing on y'all's roster. The most proven one you got. I see Zay Flowers. I see you. It's 239 in the scope. Bateman, 2 for 30. Big Mark Andrews, Tylan Wallace. Deontay Johnson got 2 targets and nothing. Come on now, where them Raven fans at? Then on the other side, you got Pickens, who had 8 grabs for 89 yards. Najee Harris had 63 on the ground, and Derrick Henry. What'd I tell you, Ravens fans? Didn't I tell you that this man better run the ball or you're going to have an L? You're going to have an L. You're going to find yourself with an L. And that's what you got. That's what you got. Y'all did that. One day y'all gonna learn. Y'all sit here and talk about Derrick Henry ain't this and he ain't that. You're gonna learn one day. Derrick Henry is your bell cow. You wanna have the same thing happen to you with the Chiefs? Every time you lose, this dude don't touch the ball, but minimal times. I'm trying to figure out 13 carries, 65 yards. I already know what you're going to talk about, the lost fumble. You know what that is? It's one time. He touched it 12 other times and had a 31-yarder. And I know some of y'all going to say, well, if you take that 31-yarder, he only had 34 yards on the ground. I'll give you that. But with Derrick Henry, I like those odds. Don't you? You can't tackle him all night. You got to take some chances. And then especially if you got y'all's quarterback running the ball like that, they can't stop both. Stop trying to make Lamar a pocket passer. Let me tell you why. 16 of 33, 207. That's less than 50%, ain't it?
Son of a bitch.
What does that tell you?
Run.
Run the ball. Wilson was 23 of 36, 205, and had an interception. Did not have a touchdown tonight, but he did have a good one to Darnell Washington and George Pickens. The thing that needs to be scary for the rest of the National Football League, especially the AFC, is if they get consistent using Darnell Washington. I said this on my last outing. If they start throwing the ball to Washington, look out, AFC. Man, I'm going to tell you something. I don't even want to talk about this game hardly because, you know what? There ain't no way after Cousins threw that interception in the third quarter, Penix wouldn't have not been in the game. You wait until the game's out of hand. Because I'm going to tell you, when it was 21-6 at the half, and then they went to the fourth quarter, when they had that interception, Penix would have been in the game. I'm tell you right now, there ain't no way Look at this. Bijan, 35 yards. Cousins, 18 to 27, 173. Sacked 3 times. Drake London, 3 for 61. Ray, 6 for 46. And here's the one that surprised me. Kyle Pitts, 1 for 9. The Falcons are still finding a way not to give this beastly of a player the ball. This is a perfect example when I hear clowns out there say, oh, he's been a bust. No, this is a perfect example of how mismanaged talent looks. Kyle Pitts ain't the problem. When you draft a unicorn like this, and that's what he is, a unicorn, the Falcons need to let Kyle Pitts walk. Because he is a waste of time in your system. You don't know how to utilize him. He is a feature player. You ain't finna sit here and tell me, oh, they stop him. No, don't do that. Stop it. In other news, Bo Nix threw. There was another quarterback on the other side. If you swapped stats, you would swear Bo Nix was the 15-year vet. And Kirk Cousins was the first-year rookie. 28 to 33, 307, 4 touchdowns. And Cortland Sutton had 7 grabs for 78 yards and a long of 23. Devon Vele had 4 grabs for 66 yards. Lil Jordan Huntley had 4 for 52, including a controversial fumble and recovery, which I saw the same thing happen in the Georgia game, and that was called an incompletion. We need to get this consistent. Because to me, that was not a fumble. That was an incompletion. It was on a 4th down, too. But anyway, the Broncos still stomped on them. That was before the game was really in doubt. It was still in doubt, I'm sorry. But unfortunately, it didn't work in their favor. Nick Bonito had 2 sacks. Malcolm Roach added a sack, and Jonah Ellis also had one of the 4 sacks that the Broncos had of Kirk Cousins. And Matthew Judon had the only sack of Bo Nix in this game. Falcons fall to 6-5, and the entourage of competitors in the NFC South are in pursuit. While the Denver Broncos are 6-5 and hoping to chase down the Kansas City Chiefs, whom had their own business to handle this week. And with that business came a 30-21 defeat at the hands of the Buffalo Bills, whom are also in pursuit of the Kansas City Chiefs and that number 1 seed in the AFC. As Josh Allen is looking more and more like he's getting back into playoff Josh Allen mode. It's beginning to look more and more like that the Bills are starting to relinquish the role of the caped wonder of Josh Allen, because Cook only had 9 carries in this game. Allen had 12 for 55, including the game's clinching touchdown run. And he was 27 of 40, 262. So I get what they're doing. You know, with the 11th game played and they've only got 6 remaining, they're getting their offense prepared to be heavy Josh Allen, I guess. That's the only thing I can figure. But I still think that's a bad idea. I think unless they're going to morph back into the James Cook, Josh Allen show, which that would be excellent if you're coming out there playing to stop Josh Allen in the playoffs, and then you get James Cook to have one of those big 2-touchdown, 100-plus yard games. But looking at Kansas City, the one thing that you look at is the offense has not been very good the last couple of seasons. Mahomes was 23 of 33, 196, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, but he was sacked twice. The weakness in this Chiefs offensive line is starting to become apparent. Although, however, which is really concerning, is that the Chiefs can run the ball exceptionally unsurprisingly well. But Hunt had 14 carries for 60 yards. And then there's rumors that Isaiah Pacheco could be coming back this week. Maybe in a slight capacity, but the reality of it is when you got 2 fresh backs and a Patrick Mahomes in the back seat, you know, I mean, when you got a Kareem Hunt and an Isaiah Pacheco in the trunk and a Patrick Mahomes at the controls, there's no telling what you can get. But I was actually impressed with the way the Buffalo Bills and Sean McDermott were able to put up a scheme that kept Xavier Worthy at 4 for 61, but he did score a touchdown. Nuke Hopkins 3 for 29. Justin Watson 2 for 26. Noah Gray 4 for 23. And Travis Kelce 2 for 8. Maybe the Buffalo Bills have just given us the blueprint to finish off the Kansas City Chiefs. Because there have been many teams that have been close. They just haven't been able to get the cigar. But the Chiefs are now 9-1. And many people are saying that Mahomes has just had his fuse lit. He's had too many opportunities. I think that this is going to be a start of a possible up and down finish for the Chiefs. And it goes into the playoffs. Chiefs 9-1, Bills 9-2, atop the AFC picture. Seattle 20, 49ers 17. As this game looked like, this looked like a game that all I can say about the San Francisco 49ers is they are so daggum inconsistent, as are the Seattle Seahawks. Because this is a team, when you watch them play at home, they can't get it figured out. It's been a while since I've seen the 49ers 500 at home. And Geno Smith was able to run the winning score in, and everybody was like, I can't believe this. Geno Smith is a statue. Now, Geno Smith is not slow by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get it twisted. The dude can run. He just don't want to run. I was sitting there listening to these analysts say, you let Geno Smith run one on you. Okay. 4 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker. That's another problem that the Seahawks have had. They can't get the running game going. That's going to be a huge issue if they make it to the playoffs. They're going to have to run the football. McCaffrey had 19 carries, 79 yards. Brock Purdy had 5 for 40, and he's getting more comfortable running the ball. But the real story is, with DK Metcalf back in the lineup, Geno and the Seattle offense finally figured out, we got another superstar wide receiver on this team. His name? JSN. You heard me, Jackson Smith-Njigba. 10 grabs, 110 yards. If you can get him the football, things will open up for one DK Metcalf. And that's the thing. If you can consistently get things going for this guy, everything else will become easy. Jawan Jennings had 10 grabs for 91 yards and a touchdown, but nobody else had anything outside of 50 yards. Looking at the defensive side, they really neutralized Nick Bosa. Even though Nick Bosa had a sack and a half, he and Leonard Floyd, outside of everything else, they pretty much kept him at bay. Now, he did make some pretty good he did have some pretty good pressure plays, as well as former Carolina Panther Edo Gross-Matos, who got him a sack in this game. And we look over at the Seahawks side of it. Dremonte Jones had a sack, as well as Derek Hall. But Ernest Jones IV had 13 tackles. Trice Knight had 10 tackles on the night, and Julian Love added 9. When you look at how the Seahawks won this game, and what was amazing about it, was it looked more like, the Steelers and the Ravens. The only difference is you were anticipating a lot less from Geno Smith. How I don't know. I guess maybe because of his history. He's not a scrambler. He's not a guy that gets out in the open field. He's going to throw it away more times than he's going to run with it. But you had a turnover apiece by each team. 49ers had the time of possession, but ultimately, when you watch this game, it felt like many a times that the 49ers were dominating this game. A lot like the Super Bowl. It felt so much like that the 49ers were just going to put this game away, but you see turnovers after turnovers. And even the turnover that Geno Smith had with the interception, all the 49ers could get out of it was a field goal, and then the Seahawks come right back and put 6 up and eat up almost 6 minutes of the clock. Then the 49ers answer with a run of their own. They score from 70 yards and almost eat up the entire remaining of the third quarter and the first quarter of the fourth quarter. And then the dangerous part about this game was when the Seahawks took it for nearly 6 minutes and they got nothing. And then the 49ers were only able to get one first down. And, back-to-back first downs. My fault. And then they have to give it back with 2:45 left, and that's when the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith work their magic all the way down to the end of the clock. So this is a toss-up. And believe it or not, you got three teams that are 5-5 in that division, and the Arizona Cardinals are in first place. Then we got the Sunday Nighter, which was a real downer because I am a kind of a undercover Bengals fan. As the Chargers beat the Bengals 34-27 and improved quietly to 7-3. As the Bengals fall to 4-7, and this is a game where I'm just going to go in. As good as Joe Burrow was, he freaking missed horribly on a play that probably would have milked the game. Now, granted, you got to put some blame to Evan McPherson, or Shooter, as a certain fan of the show refers to him. You cannot miss 2 field goals. If you just make one, all the Bengals have to do is stand guard. And for everybody that's hating on this Bengals defense, yes, you might roast them in one half, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to stand tall in one of these halves, whether it's the first half or the second half. All you asking if you the Bengals defense is get us just one touchdown in the first half, so when we look that bad. No, they got 2 daggone field goals. It was 24-6 at the half. And then they kicked the field goal right there at the beginning of the third quarter. And here come the Bengals. Like clockwork. Why does it take the offense a whole half before they realize they need to wake up? You can't even blame the defense. Everybody going to sit here and want to blame the defense, but this is on Joe. 356 or no 356. And I get tired of hearing analysts say Joe did all he could. Do you forget the first half where they only scored 6 points? Yeah. And did you forget that what Chase runs down the field, gets 3 yards of separation, and Joe overthrows him? So as much as I'm not going to go to Chris Canty roll, I'm not going to go to Chris Canty route, but it's on Joe. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert was 17-36. You guys know, as good as he played in the first half, he finishes the game with a completion percentage under 50%. Not good. Herbert also was very good with his legs. He had 5 carries for 65 yards, which was huge because when the Bengals got to a point where they're slowing him down in the first half, Justin said, I'm going to take off. J.K. Dobbins surprisingly had a efficient game, but then he kind of disappeared in that second half, didn't he? I thought watching the game he had more than 11 carries. I didn't realize he had just 11 carries. Seemed like he was running all over the place in that first half. Ladd McConkey had 6 grabs for 123 yards. He was a big piece of that game. Will Dissly had 4 for 80 and a touchdown. So I saw what was going on, but the reality of it is the Chargers are beatable. And unfortunately for the Bengals, they picked their spots in a lot of games incorrectly. To me, they still have not played a all-around full football game. Maybe it's time. Maybe this game's flipped it on. Who knows? Jamar Chase had 7 grabs, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins, 9 in his return, 9 for 148 and a touchdown. Yeah, I still think there's a lot left in the tank because at the end of the day, there are so many teams that are down down at the bottom. They're out of it. They're totally out of it. The Bengals are not one of those teams. There's still a lot of teams. There are a lot of spaces, playoff spots, and not a lot of teams available for them. There'll be a lot of people disagree with me, but I still think the Bengals are an outsider. They're not mathematically out yet. And now we go to the Monday Nighter, which was competitive for about a half, because it was 17-10 at the half. But the Texans never trailed in this game, and the Cowboys have now lost their 5th straight as they shut out the Cowboys in the second half winning this one by a count of 34-10. I think Houston Texan fans will take heart that they're playing well, but I think they have to be concerned with the communication between Bobby Slowick and CJ Stroud. It's looking as though that there are issues between the play calling and what CJ Stroud is comfortable with. And until they resolve that issue, I'm not seeing this team being as competitive as they were in the earlier part of the year. CJ Stroud is starting to show little signs that he might be going through a sophomore slump. I hope not. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a really awesome quarterback. He's probably right now with Bryce Young's resurrection, maybe. I'm still not sold on Anthony Richardson. You got to do more than just come back and have one good game. You got to string them together. You can't fool some team into thinking, okay, I got no film on you this week, and I got to all of a sudden prepare for old man Joe Flacco. No disrespect, Super Bowl winning old man Joe Flacco, and then all of a sudden you put a 21-year-old kid in here who I didn't prepare for. But the Texans with Joe Mixon, 109, 3 touchdowns. The offensive line for the Texans look more equipped for running the football than protecting CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is getting absolutely popped every game. He's not getting the same level of protection as he did last year. Now, I will say this. A lot of people will say it's nonsense. Lines can block, pass block, and run block. That's not true. Majority of the time, if you get an offensive line that's very good at pass blocking, they're going to usually be suspect on run blocking. Because run blocking and pass blocking are two totally different disciplines. Due to two totally different outcomes that you're searching for. But anyway, as far as this goes, as long as the Texans stick to running the football and using play action pass with CJ Stroud and doing the things that he likes, they don't need a whole bunch of different pass plays with Joe Mixon in the backfield. Just stick with your basic read option and play action. Texans 34, Cowboys 10 as the Texans go to 7-4, and the Cowboys are looking to possibly do this Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders a deal, allegedly. I think it's stupid, and I'm tired of talking about it. I don't think it makes any sense. Deion has to show me he can coach a top-notch college football team before he can even set foot in the NFL. I said it. But let me know what you guys think. Go to my Facebook page at Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Let me know what you think about the show, and let me know what other things I can get involved in and do on the show. Also, comment down below if you joined the show and joined the Gridiron Gab Pro Style family. Please put your name down in the box. I've had people that are still not doing that. I want to know who you are so I can add you to the family and the roster. So when we hit it big time, you will go down as members of the first family. Also, go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can find out what other shows and things that I'm also involved in. I've got some few non-Gridiron Gab Pro Style things coming up on some other shows that I'm going to be doing, some traveling things, and I want you guys to check it out. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.